roll.
Hello, I'm Bruce Scott of Sunrise Productions. Over the years, we have brought you some of the very best clay target and wing shooting videos available. And with our development of the iCam, we have revolutionized video instruction. So it's not surprising that we find ourselves today in Houston, Texas, home of Briley Manufacturing and the Greater Houston Gun Club. And it's also not surprising that we find ourselves on the skeet field with Todd Bender. For the last 3 decades, Todd Bender has maintained a position of the elite in skeet shooting. His feats on the field of competition are well known. The World Championships, the 400 straights, and record averages. But we are here today because Todd has also positioned himself among the best shotgun instructors in the world. He was recognized as the first master instructor for the National Skeet Shooting Association and as an honorary fellow in England's Institute of Clay Shooting Instructors. He has set standards for skeet shooting instruction and travels the world teaching his proven method. Today we will have an opportunity to tap into Todd's vast knowledge and become better skeet shooters ourselves.
The sport of skeet shooting today has evolved into one of the most precise of the shotgun shooting disciplines. The demands in the competitive arena are very high. However, if we analyze a skeet field mathematically and geometrically, we can come up with a methodical and simple approach that, when added in with solid shotgun shooting fundamentals, can allow us to realize our full potential and have much more consistent performances. But before we start talking about our fundamentals and our approach to the game, whenever involved in any shooting activity, safety is first, which means eye and ear protection. Even as a spectator, I take these precautions. And of course, of utmost importance is gun safety. Whenever carrying a firearm, make sure that it is open, unloaded, and safe. And make sure that your muzzle is always pointed in a safe direction. Not only so that you know that it's open, unloaded, and safe, but make sure that you carry it in a manner so that others know also. When shooting a pump gun or an automatic, the same applies. Making sure that the bolt is open, everyone knows that we're unloaded and safe, and with the muzzle pointing in a safe direction. An often overlooked aspect of shotgunning is gun fit. Now obviously we can't do a professional fitting on this video. However, there are some things that we can know that can help us shoot better. When I look at dimensions on a stock, there are a number of them. Length of pull, cast on, cast off, height of the comb. However, there's only one dimension that's very important to me, and that's the height of the comb, because that dictates where the rear side of the shotgun, your eye, sits. All the other aspects are pretty much comfort. So unless the gun's way too long or the cast off is way off, we can kind of work our way around that. However, the height of the comb is non-negotiable. Now, when I mount a shotgun, what I want to see is a figure 8 when my face is firmly pressed down on the stock. Now with my gun here, we can see that I have 2 beads, a middle bead and a front bead. And when I want to see a figure 8, that means that I want to see the middle bead directly underneath the front bead. Now if my stock were too low, when I press my face down tightly upon the stock, my eye would actually start to go behind the back of the receiver and I would lose sight of the beads. This causes one of the most common mistakes in shotgunning, which is raising your head so that you can see what you're shooting at. So we want our stock to be high enough to where we have good vision around the barrel and we have our anchor point feeling the cheek firmly placed down upon the stock. Now if you don't see the figure 8 or if you feel uncomfortable with your gun mount, seek out the advice of a professional gun fitter. Because if your shotgun doesn't fit you, you'll never realize your full potential. Now while on the subject of gun mounts, let's talk about a proper gun mount. If I take my arm and reach it out into the sky, we can see that there's a natural pocket formed here in my shoulder, and this is where I want to place the butt of the gun. If I take the gun and bring the gun up to my face, we can see that that pocket is formed. And if I pull the gun into the pocket and then just bring my weight forward, we can see that my head's erect, the gun is comfortable in the shoulder, and I'm in a wonderful position to take very good shots with very good vision. Once I have a shotgun that fits me and I've perfected my mount, now I can move on to the fundamentals of what it takes to hit a moving target with a shotgun. And there's 3 simple rules. Head on the gun, eye on the target, and have the proper lead. Now we started with gun fit because gun fit is an integral part of the #1 rule, head on the gun. And that's important because a shotgun has 2 sights. We have the front sight, which is the front bead. And we have the rear sight, which is your eye. Now, if I place that rear sight of the shotgun in a different spot, those two sights will line up differently and my shotgun will shoot in a different spot. I've lost my consistency. However, with a stock that's high enough where I feel this pressure, as long as my head is in the same spot every time, i.e. the rear sight, that shotgun will shoot exactly where I'm looking every time. So rule number one, head on the gun. Now the second of the three fundamentals is have your eye on the target. Now that seems simple enough. However, very few of my students actually look at targets the way I do or the way I would like them to. Now when we talk about having focus on the target, most of my students just see targets. With this target I'm holding in my hand right now, you can notice that you're focused on me because I'm talking, but you're seeing this target. Now I want you to physically take your focus and shift over to the target. Now you notice your focus is on the target, but you're not focused on me, however you still see me. And this is how we want to look at skeet targets. We want our focus, all of our attention to be directed to these targets. When I was in college, my coach taught us to watch these targets spin. Now that's looking at them pretty hard, and that's what I try to do every day when I step onto a skeet field. Because the better I can see a target, the better my performance is going to be. Imagine this, the baseball player that had the highest batting average in the major leagues last year wasn't looking at his bat. He was focused on that ball and seeing the seams on that pitch spin at him. And that's how we're going to look at these targets. So, number two, eye on the target. Now I said there were three fundamentals, and there are, and the third fundamental is have the correct lead. But it's a distant fundamental, not nearly as important as the first two. Why? Because we're shooting a shotgun. And a shotgun throws a sizable pattern. You will never hear me get precise about leads during this video. I will always talk in terms of 2.5 to 3 feet, 3.5 to 4 feet, because lead is just not that important. As long as we're close, that's good enough. Head on the gun, eye on the target, and have the proper lead. Now, as strange as this sounds, if I do those three things on each and every shot, it's physically impossible to miss. Here's why. If my head's on the gun, that shotgun is pointing exactly where I'm looking. If I raise my head and come out of the gun, it's kind of like shooting from the hip. I really don't know where the shotgun's pointing. However, if my head's down tight, I know exactly where that gun's pointing. It's pointing where I'm looking. If my eye's on the target, I have that focus that we were talking about. I will be able to match gun speed with target speed, and this is another very important phrase that we'll talk about a lot in this video, matching gun speed with target speed. That would be impossible to do if I didn't know what the target was doing. So with that focus, I will have a smooth move, my gun will be mirroring target movement, and I will be able to do exactly what the target's doing. And if I have the correct lead, it's physically impossible for that shot string not to run out and intercept the flight path of that target. I have a mantra when I shoot, and like I said, there's three fundamentals, but the first two are the most important. My mantra is head on the gun, eye on the target, because I know if I do those two things, I'll break that target. I can even make a lot of mistakes, and if my head's on the gun and my eye's on the target, I have a good chance of breaking it. Now, if I did a shot where my foot position was perfect, my hold point was perfect, I did everything right. As I was executing that shot, again, still doing everything perfect, if just before I pulled the trigger I took my eye off that target, I'd miss it. But I can do a lot of things wrong, and if I execute the three fundamentals, I will be successful. Having the correct lead is one of the three important fundamentals, but there's a number of ways to obtain that lead. In fact, there's three methods of obtaining lead. The first is the swing-through method. In the swing-through method, a shooter allows the target to pass the gun, and as the gun is accelerated, lead is obtained as the trigger's pulled, but this leaves everything to chance and right at the end, and we don't like this. There's a lot of timing involved. Now we can look at this over the gun and see that as the target passes the gun, we're coming from behind, a little harried, and have to obtain lead right at the last second. Now let's talk about the second method, which is the pull-ahead method. And the pull-ahead method is the method recognized by the CPSA in England. Now in the pull-ahead method, the target is acquired, and immediately the gun is pointed at the target. Now what's good about this is we are matching gun speed with target speed. The gun is doing what the target is doing. We're mirroring target movement. But again, as we can see, I don't have a lead until just before I pull the trigger when I pull ahead and acquire the lead. Now this isn't good because, again, I'm saving everything to the last second. We can see this through the iCam, is that we do match gun speed with target speed, but again, we have to wait right till the end to get the proper lead. Now the third method, which is a generally accepted method in skeet shooting, is called sustained lead method, and that's what we're going to be doing in this video. Now in sustained lead, the gun will start at a particular spot in the sky, our hold point. The target appears and immediately the gun starts moving and makes the target fly behind the barrel. Now you'll notice we're matching gun speed with target speed, but we are also sustaining the lead. This puts us in control of the target and puts me in a position where I can pull the trigger at any time that I want. And shot placement is a very important part of the modern game of skeet shooting, especially when it comes to shooting doubles. So as we go through the video today, we will be talking always about sustained lead shooting. Again, the iCam illustrates the sustained lead method quite well. Notice as the target emerges, the gun is already in motion, gun speed is matched with target speed, and the shot is taken. As you look at the iCam shots in this video, you'll notice that the view is monocular. The camera has one eye, however, we're born with two eyes, which gets us to a subject, eye dominance. Now, people have a number of problems in this area. There's opposite eye dominance, left-handed, right eye dominance, and vice versa. Hopefully you're like me, where you're right-handed and right eye dominant. Now there's a very simple test that I could give you to do this. However, that would only show your eye dominance in your living room right now in a very controlled environment. And we found out that as stress and fatigue are introduced into the body, eye dominance can change. So if you feel that you have some issues with eye dominance, please seek out the advice of a professional, someone who understands eye dominance issues. Now, unfortunately, there's probably only a handful of people in the country who actually understand these problems. But if you are experiencing this, please find them or give me a call. Now that we understand some of the basics and fundamentals of shotgunning, let's take what we've learned in our understanding out into the field and start applying them. Well, here we are at the Greater Houston Gun Club. Now, we've been at the Briley showroom and we've talked about the important fundamentals of hitting a moving target with a shotgun. Now we're going to apply those fundamentals out here in the skeet field. But while we're on the subject of shotguns, let's talk about the gun sitting in the rack here. And this is my Krieghoff. I've shot this particular Krieghoff for 20 years, and I want to talk a little bit about the equipment that you're going to be seeing in the video all day today. First of all, this particular gun, this is the receiver I got 20 years ago. Now, this is a standard weight receiver. I've just recently, in fact last year, gone to 32-inch barrels. Of course, if you look at the size of me, I'm kind of a large guy, so I was kind of born to shoot a 32-inch gun. And that's pretty much up to personal preference, body type. I'm a big guy. I should be shooting a longer barrel gun. Proportionally, I'm fit for that size. And for you at home, whether you choose to shoot a 28 or a 30 or a 32, it's pretty much left up to you. But notice, standard weight barrel, standard weight receiver, I'm shooting a heavy gun. Again, you're going to be the final judge of what you like to shoot. You'll also notice in the iCam that we're going to use today is showing the actual leads in the shots. As you look down my barrel, you'll notice that I shoot a stepped tapered rib. Now, why do I shoot a stepped tapered rib? Believe it or not, because I think it looks cool. I like the looks of it, and that's why I shoot it. Again, it's personal preference. Now, let's go back and recap what we talked about at the Briley showroom. The fundamentals of what it takes to hit a moving target with a shotgun. Now remember, we talked about gun fit right off the bat, and that's the most important thing, so I want to make sure that everyone's gone out, check their fit, check their sight alignment with the pressure on the cheekbone. Now let's talk about the three fundamentals that we're going to apply on every shot today. Remember, head on the gun, eye on the target, have the proper lead. Now those are the three fundamentals, and if I execute those three fundamentals each and every time, it's physically impossible to miss the target. Now, the last thing we talked about in the Briley showroom was eyes and eye dominance. And that's an issue that we kind of waltz around a little bit because everybody's strictly individual. And again, if you think you have some type of eye dominance issues, please seek out a professional who knows what he's talking about so he can help you. Now, let's go out to the field and talk about eyes in more depth. Now, one of the most important aspects or factors in any of the shotgun shooting disciplines, or for any hand-eye coordination sport for that matter, is the eyes. It's all about vision. We have to be able to see what we're shooting at. And one of the most overlooked aspects of this game is where to look for targets when they're appearing. So we're going to talk about a lot of things today. Foot position, hold points. These are things that I'm kind of inflexible on, and I'm inflexible because they're the way they need to be. However, when it comes to eyes, we're all individuals. Some people's eyes are stronger, some people have better peripheral vision. There's just a lot of different variables, and because of those different variables, as an individual, we may need to look in different places. Now, as we go around the field on each shot, I'll suggest where I look and tell you why I look there. However, that may not work for you. So you just have to find out what works for you. Now, around the skeet field, there are only two shots in the field that I look directly in the window, those being high and low 8. Of course, those are kind of separate shots anyway. But every other shot on the field, I'm looking in a specific spot, but a spot away from the window. Now, I have some theories about looking in the house. One of the things is the window's black. And to help us, in most gun clubs, and we have it here, they paint a big white box around it. Now that's called contrast.
and the human eye is drawn to contrast. So a black box with white paint around it, the eye is drawn to it. And one of the reasons I don't look in the window is when a target emerges from that, because it's the way my eyes work, I can lock on that contrast and I'll have to pull off that contrast and chase the target down with my eyes. So I tend to look away from the house a little bit so I don't have to deal with that locking on to that contrast. Now, some of the best shooters in the nation, in fact, my coaching partner, John Shima, looks in the window on every shot on the field. Now, am I going to stand here and tell you that I'm right and John Shima's wrong? Absolutely not. Now, I'm a much better shot than John, but that's beside the point. We're all different. So we need to find out where you need to look, and here's the bottom line on the eyes. We're going to talk about where I look. I'm going to tell you why. I just did kind of give you a little bit of a look into why we're going to look where I look. However, what's important is once you find where you need to look, we need to have a consistent application in looking in that spot. Meaning this, I'll walk up to a shot, let's say a high 3, and shoot 3 high 3s. Now, one of the high 3s I can look in the window. The other high 3, I can look halfway between my hold point and the house. And the third high 3, I can have my eyes positioned over the barrel when I call for the target. Because of the different eye positions, all 3 of those shots will be completely different for me. The way I perceive the target and the way I react to it. So I'll have 3 completely different shots. So once you find what works for you, where you're looking, please be consistent in the application. And what did I just say? Something that I want to beat into you all day today: consistency, consistency, consistency. Have a plan, stick with it, and you'll be successful. Now, let's start talking about the body mechanics and the form that'll make us even more successful in this game. Now, if there's one thing that I'm known for in my coaching, it's the importance that I place on body mechanics. And I've seen a lot of targets missed due to bad form, bad body mechanics. So if we can get our form clean, we can end up with a lot more consistency in our game. Now, there's basically 2 types of shooters, and I want to go through these and demonstrate this so we can understand, and hopefully you at home can get this form down. Probably 95% of the people I work with in my clinics, I have to make form changes on. Now, partially that's because until I can grab someone and get my hands on them and say, no, this is the way we need to do it, it's very difficult to get this right. So I want you to pay close attention. Let's give a good demonstration and get our form correct. Now, there's 2 types of shooters: upper body shooters and lower body shooters. Now, most of the people I see and most of the people I watch, if I were just walking down the sidewalk at a gun club, are upper body shooters. I'm a lower body shooter. Now, what's so bad about being an upper body shooter? An upper body shooter moves the gun in this manner. Now, there's a bunch of bad things happening right now. First of all, notice that my arms help generate gun speed. Now, that's bad because as I use my arms to push the gun, notice that I can push the gun away from my face. Well, I'm breaking the first of the 3 fundamentals head on the gun. So an upper body shooter has one hell of a time staying in the gun. In fact, they couldn't stay in the gun if their life depended on it, because just the movement of using the upper body and the arms pushes the gun away from the face. So that's the first bad thing that happens. Now, the next bad thing that happens is as I'm using my arms to push the gun, notice that my weight shifts from one foot to the other. Now, this is bad because in extreme cases, you can actually throw yourself off balance. This has probably happened to some of you at home. Have you ever seen a shooter shoot, let's say, a double at station 6 and fall off the station as he's taking the shot? Well, what happens is as we push and shift our weight, sometimes we can shift our upper body weight to a point where the feet cannot support the weight anymore. In fact, you're off balance, you've lost your balance. So you have 2 choices. You either fall down or take a step. Most people opt for the step. But I've never been involved in any sport in my life where the first thing they told me to do was to get off balance. So if I'm off balance and trying to take a shot, it's not going to be a very good shot, is it? So the number 2 bad thing that happens to an upper body shooter, loss of balance. Also, as the weight shifts from one foot to the other, notice my shoulders rolling. Now, this is the killer. You'll hear an awful lot of right-hand shooters complain about rolling their shoulders on incoming targets like high 4, high 5, and high 6. And this is just the act of shifting the weight from one foot to the other. Now, what's bad about this, as the shotgun's attached to the shoulder and I roll my shoulders, if you look at my finger, we can see that the muzzle can roll right up over the target. And this is something that we have absolutely no control of. The upper body's controlling this move, so even if you wanted to come down to the target, you couldn't. So these are all the bad things associated with using your upper body. So an upper body shooter has no use of his legs at all. Now, I'm a lower body shooter, which means all of my movement is generated from the waist down. When I take a shotgun and mount it, my head, chest, shoulders, arms, gun, everything's locked in. It's the legs that do the work. Now, my legs are driving this movement. Now, there's a bunch of good things happening. Now, first of all, notice that you do see my upper body turning. But pay attention and notice that the shoulders are staying in the same plane as the hips. The upper body is just coming along for the ride. It's the quadriceps, the legs that are driving the movement. Now, here's all the good stuff that's happening. As I get my weight forward and get into the gun and turn and drive with my legs, look at my arms. They're not doing anything. They're gun supports. They keep the shotgun from hitting the ground. So it's very easy for me to keep my head in the gun. Rule number one. Also, as I pivot and turn, notice that my weight stays in one place. As a right-handed shooter, my left foot becomes my front foot, so my rotation and my pivot is forward on this left foot. And as I do this, I maintain my balance throughout the whole shot. And next, and lastly, look at my shoulders. They remain level. So with my weight forward, the legs driving the move, the head's in the gun, the weight position is always forward, always having my balance, and my shoulders stay level, so I've got control of my shots at all times, not rolling and losing control of my point of impact. Now, one of the big keys to this body mechanics is the weight distribution. Now, I have a lot of weight forward. Those of you who see me shoot, I get a little bit lower than I would say in this video, and I have a lot more weight forward. And the important thing is, as we're about to get into, it's not the degree of the knee bend, it's not how low you get, it's the fact that you use your legs. And it doesn't depend on how much weight distribution we get forward. It's important that wherever we get, that we're comfortable and we stay there throughout the whole turn. Now, how much weight should you have forward? If I get my feet underneath my shoulders, find a wall, extend my fingers and stand arm's length away from the wall. Now, with both knees bent, turn your hand up. Now, just by leaning up against the wall and dropping that hand, we see that I've put about 80% of my body weight forward. Now, this is what I call idiot-proofing the move. When I commit this much weight forward, I have no choice but to pivot and turn on this axis. With this much weight forward, now it takes conscious thought to roll back to my, for as a right-handed shooter, my right foot or my back foot, which causes the shoulder rolling, loss of control, change of gun speed. So committing this weight forward positions me so I'm destined to have a good turn. Now, there's another way to look at this. As you're shooting your shots and preparing and working on your form, I want you to think of having downward pressure from the hip to the foot. As I have downward pressure from my left hip, as a right-handed shooter, from my left hip to my left foot, we can see that I can only create a good turn as I maintain that pressure throughout all my movement. Anytime that I shift the weight back or roll the shoulders, we take that pressure off that foot and we lose our good form. So think downward pressure, pivoting and turning, quadriceps driving the movement. As you will notice, when we do our station-by-station analysis, we're going to have a number of angles when we actually view the shots. We're going to start and have a shot showing my form, which we just talked about, the good turn, the shoulders staying level and the head in the gun. We're going to also then go to an over-the-shoulder shot. It's not going to show the target as much, but I want you to just pay specific attention to how I turn, how the weight stays forward, the things that we just talked about. I want you to notice the shoulders staying level, the head staying in the gun, and a good follow-through. These are the products of all the things that we've just talked about right here. So I want you to pay attention to that later and deeper into the video as we start looking at each particular shot. This is going to help you take that knowledge and apply it yourself when we get onto the skeet field. Also, here's another thing to think about. At the end of each shot, as you go through this, I want you to think, after you've pulled the trigger and broken the target, the last thing I want you to think is, where's my weight distribution? If my weight finished at the end of the shot, out in front, on my front, as my left foot finished in the same place that it started, then I must have had a good turn. But any time that you finish a shot and you feel off balance, the weight is shifted, we know that we've had some upper body movement, and that's bad. Now, for those of you who have seen me shoot, notice that when I demonstrate our shots on the video today, I'm trying to demonstrate good form, and I'm going to have a good leg turn. If you've ever seen me shoot, you'll notice that I have a lot of weight forward and I've got a lot of knee bend. It's not imperative that you do that. What's important is that we keep the weight forward and we have a good turn. And whether you do it with a lot of weight forward or not as much, a big knee bend or not as much of a knee bend, that's not what's important. Two things are important. You give me the turn that I want on one axis, shoulders level, and that you're comfortable. Now, let's take those body mechanics, because if we're going to be lower body shooters, it's very important what we do with our feet. So let's talk about it at station 2. Now let's talk about foot position. Now, since we're going to be lower body shooters, it's very important what we do with our feet. Where we place our feet dictate where we can turn and where we can't turn. Now, first of all, when I step up to a station and address it, I want my feet underneath my shoulders and parallel. And if you remember back when we leaned up against the wall, I said feet underneath the shoulders. Well, I want them underneath the shoulders and parallel for this reason. Anytime I take the feet and stagger them, or more importantly, take the knees out of the same plane, the knees lock. Well, this reduces my ability to use my legs, so that's not very good. Also, there's an old wives' tale that says, for a right-handed shooter, take your left foot and point it to where you're going to break the target. Again, I've turned the knees away from each other, and we can see that because they're out of the same plane, they lock. I've limited my ability to turn with the legs. So I want you to stand like you're wearing skis, feet underneath the shoulders and parallel. Now, if you get your feet perfectly parallel, you may actually feel like you're standing like that. So I want you to get them as close to parallel as comfortable. What we're trying to avoid are these radical stances that lock the knees and limit movement. Now, when we look at a skeet field, and one of the things that I hope you'll find interesting and that you'll like, is that as we go through the field today, I'm not going to hit you with a bunch of hold points and a bunch of foot positions, because this game can be looked at mathematically and geometrically and be standardized. In fact, I'm going to give you one foot position with two exceptions for the whole field. And let's talk about that. For a right-handed shooter, my one foot position, stations 1 through 6, is belly button in the low house window, and here's why. If I walk up to station 2 and I face the low house window and notice that the gun is open and empty, and I take the gun and I comfortably drop it across my body, you'll notice that my gun is pointing just to this side of the center stake. I'm comfortable and neutral in this position. Now, when I turn back to my hold point on high 2, you can see that I'm wound up and there's tension in the legs. However, when I relax my body, I naturally unwind with the target and come to where I'm going to take the shot where I'm most comfortable. I'm not fighting the body to make the shot. It's just a nice relaxing unwind. I'm going to use the same foot position for the low house for the same reason. I'm going to shoot low 2 on this side of the center stake in the same general area that I'm going to shoot high 2. So I would turn back into my hold point. Notice, wound up, tension in the legs. When I relax my body, I don't go that way. I naturally unwind with good form, good clean rotation, unwind with the target to where I'm most comfortable, where I'm going to take the shot. Now here's one of the things I love about the skeet field. A skeet field is built on a semicircle, and just because of the way that geometry and angles work, from stations 1 through 6, if I walk up to that station, face that low house window, and drop the gun comfortably across my body, it's going to point to the middle of the field. So one foot position for the whole field. There are two exceptions, and we'll talk about that when we get to those stations. Now, we've talked about the right-handed foot positions, and for our left-handed viewers, there are some changes. However, you'll be happy to know that it's the same simplicity as a right-handed shooter. It's just opposite. So let's look at foot position from the left-handed standpoint. As a left-handed shooter, I'm going to face the high house window for the same reasons as I face the low house window as a right-handed shooter. Facing in this position, I can comfortably drop the gun across my body, and we'll see it's going to point at the same spot, just a little bit to this side of the center stake. And I'm comfortable turning on this half of the field. Now, for a left-handed shooter, stations 2 through 7, I'm going to face the high house window. Right-handed shooter, stations 1 through 6, I'm going to face the low house window. In fact, the exception to the rule is, as a right-handed shooter, the only two places that I don't face the low house window are the two places that I can't possibly do it, station 7 and high 8. For the left-handed shooter, it's just the opposite. There are two places on the field that I really can't face the high house window, and that's going to be station 1 and low 8. So those are exceptions to our foot position rules, but more often than not, most of the time, right-handed shooters facing the low house window, left-handed shooters, skis on, parallel underneath the shoulders, facing the high house window. Now, one of the things I find troubling in my clinics, and we're going to talk about hold points right now, is that a lot of people come to me and they say have difficulty finding their hold points. Right now, you can see I'm standing in between the high house and the center stake, and there's one general hold point for the field, and we're going to get a lot more detailed about this when we go from our station to station analysis. But one of the repetitive and general hold points of the field is a third of the way from the house you're shooting to the center stake. Now, I position myself right now. If you look at the high house and look at the center stake, I position myself about a third of the way. Now, that distance is 21 yards from the house to the center stake, high house or low house, and a third of the way out obviously would be 21 feet. However hard it may be for you to find these hold points, and a lot of people have this difficulty, I don't have the difficulty because I do it all the time. So I want you to start focusing on trying to survey the field on each and every shot and finding your third of the way. Now, once you've surveyed the field, and let's say we're at high 4 looking at this area, You may look back in the distance and find a tree or a tower or a cloud or a rock, or find something that marks that hole point as a third of the way at high 4. But understand this, as we move over to high 5, I'm not going to use that same rock or tree or tower because my perspective on the field has changed. So as I go from station to station to station, on each shot, each station, I survey from to where I'm standing, the house, the center stake, and I find that third of the way, and I use it every time. Now understand, much like eye position, hole points are not written in stone, which means I want you to find a third of the way, and it's a good guideline, but we're going to be flexible with those hole points, meaning this: as I travel around the country going from tournament to tournament or clinic to clinic, my hole points are going to change. Now, they're always going to be in the general vicinity of a third of the way, but hole point is based on one thing, and that's target speed, meaning this: when I go to a club where the targets are a little bit slower, my hole points move in a little bit because a slower target takes longer to get to my barrel. My definition of a good hole point is my gun starts here, the target leaves the window, and immediately when that target leaves the window, my gun starts moving. And by the time that target's 20 feet out of the window, I should have already matched gun speed with target speed and have the proper lead. Now, for that to happen with a slower target, I would have to come in a little bit closer. When I go to gun clubs where the targets are speedier, they have a little more spring, my hole points are going to come out because a faster target is going to get to my barrel faster. So I'm going to hold out so I can still get a sustained lead, get it quick, without much effort on my part. So be flexible in finding your hole points, but understand we're never going to vary too far away from that 1/3. It's a very, very good starting point, but depending on target speed and conditions, we may change and modify so that we can control these targets to the best of our interest. Now, we've talked about hole points, and we'll talk in a lot more detail about them from the station to station analysis when we start shooting. In fact, we've talked about the fundamentals of what it takes to hit a moving target with a shotgun: head on the gun, eye on the target, and have the correct lead. We've talked about the body mechanics, foot position, and hole points. So let me grab my gun and let's start shooting some skeet. Now we're ready to start our station by station analysis. Now before we start here at high 1, I want to talk about how you're going to view what's about to come up. And please notice the mechanical and repetitive nature about what I'm saying to you today, which means this: by the time we get around to station 4 and station 5, you're going to hear the same things over and over again. But that's why I think I've been successful in my career. We're going to take the game, dissect it, break it down to its simplest forms, and approach very similar shots the same way. So we're going to do a lot of things the same, but there's a reason for it. It's easier for us to repeat it and be successful. Now here we are at station 1. Now from our foot position discussion, you can see that as a right-handed shooter, I'm facing the low house window. Now some people find this to be a little uncomfortable. They feel that they're a little cranked around when they come to the high house, and I understand that. However, there's two reasons that I go ahead and do this. First of all, it's in keeping with my foot position rule: belly button and lost window. Also, you'll notice, standing in this manner facing the lost window, I can comfortably turn all the way almost to the edge of the high house past the boundary stakes. So if I ever get a flat low 1 double or low 1 single that I have to shoot later than I normally do, I have the ability to make that turn. Now if you still feel uncomfortable with this foot position, I don't mind if you drop this right foot back and modify it and turn more towards station 6 or more towards station 5. As long as you remember, again, from our foot position discussion, that the more you go this way, the more you lose over here on this side of the field. So understand that we've got a balancing act here, and that we don't want to take too much away from these high 1 and low 1 shots. So as a right-handed shooter, I'm facing the lost window. Left-hand foot position, this is the exception to the rule. We're going to face straight out. This way, as a left-handed shooter drops the gun across the body, it's pointing directly at the center stake where the high 1 shot's taken, and they're very comfortable turning on this half of the field for the low 1 single and the low 1 double. Now when we look at high 1, I approach this shot a little differently than some people do. Some people make what I consider a mistake, holding the gun too high, letting the target come to the barrel and tracking down with it. Now, why I think this is a problem is there's a chance you can get your gun too high and high 1 can get underneath your barrel. Now you've got serious problems because you've lost sight of the target. Also, by dropping the gun down with the target, you're talking about some pretty precise gun movements, and I don't think I'm that good. So I'm going to take the movement out of the shot and shoot it with a dead gun, which means I'm going to have my hole point exactly where I'm going to pull the trigger. Now, for you at home to find this, if you can imagine where the hoop would be standing about 15 feet above the center stake, I'm going to hold about 4 or 5 feet above the top of the hoop. This gets me about an elevation of 20 feet above the ground. And I'm going to stick my gun exactly where I'm going to call for that target, and I'm going to watch for high one come out, and with no gun movement at all, as high one approaches my barrel, when it gets just over my barrel, I'm going to shoot it like it's got little quail feet hanging on the bottom of the target. Now, the reason I have to shoot him in the feet, and the reason I can't shoot right at this target, is since I have a dead gun, if I pulled the trigger when I was pointing at this target, by the time I pulled the trigger and the firing pin hit the primer and the primer ignited the powder, the shot string would be over the top of the target and I would miss. So I'm sending my shot string from underneath and out in front of high one, so the target actually runs into my shot string. The only movement I have on this shot will be lateral. The target's inside or outside. Now that may sound confusing, so let's take a couple of shots and see what it looks like. Now, one of the things you'll notice in the sequence of the shots that we take in this station by station analysis is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shoot a form shot. I'm going to shoot a target, but we're not going to pay attention. You at home are not going to pay attention to the target. The camera's going to be focused on me. I want you to pay attention to my body mechanics, my form. Notice how the body moves. Notice what the shoulders do. Notice how the head stays in the gun after the shot. Notice follow through. From that form shot, we're going to go to an over-the-shoulder shot, which gives you a little bit more view behind me, but again, we're looking at how the gun reacts to the target, we're looking at how the body reacts to the movement. Then we're going to go to the ICAM shots, which is a great innovation, which is going to show you exactly what I'm seeing down the barrel when I take these shots, and then we'll see that in slow motion. But first, let's shoot a high one single, looking at the form on this shot. First of all, good foot position, facing the low house window. My hold point over the center of the stake, about 20 feet up, which is about 5 feet above the top of the hoop. I mount the gun, look just over the gun, and call for the target. Pull! Now let's see what that shot looks like from over the shoulder. Pull! Notice very little gun movement, head stayed in the gun, good finish of the shot. Now let's look at that through the ICAM and see how that looks. Pull. Now let's analyze what we just saw with the ICAM in slow motion. Notice the hold point, the eye's just above the barrel, the target appears, very little gun movement, the shot's taken, head stays in the gun, and a successful high one shot. Now let's look at low one. Of course, my foot position is going to stay the same because I'm going to shoot the target on this side of the field. And generally, I'll shoot low one single in the same spot that I'm going to shoot low one double. That gives me one sight picture for that shot. So, same foot position. My hold point, level the bottom of the window, and every hold point I give you today is going to start with that one phrase. Level with the bottom of the window. Get that big hunk of wood and metal down and out of your face so you can see what you're shooting at. Now, I'm not going to hold a third of the way out here like we've talked about in previous discussions. Because this is a short lead target and I have a lot of time to obtain the lead, I'm going to come in a little bit closer to that house. In fact, I'm going to hold about 10 feet outside of the house. And as that target comes out, I'm going to match gun speed to target speed, bring them this side of the field, and take the shot with 6 inches to a foot of lead. Now, let's take a look at that. With the form shot first, foot position facing the low house window. Notice in the gun mount, the weight comes forward. We come back to the hold point about 10 feet out. The eyes shift back towards the house. Pull. Notice how at the end of the shot, the gun kept moving. Good follow through, shoulders level, head in the gun. Now let's see that over the shoulder and get a better look at the gun-target relationship. Pull. And the same good smooth follow through and finish. Now through the ICAM. Pull. And let's analyze that in slow motion through the ICAM. Notice the gun come to the hold point, 10 feet out. The target emerges immediately. Gun speed is matched with target speed. A sustained lead is maintained. The low one brought over to this side of the field and taken with good follow through. Now we're going to shoot the pair. Now obviously nothing's going to change from my singles to my doubles, meaning my high one single shot's the same as a double, so I'm not going to change my approach to that shot. My foot position's the same, the hold point's the same. What we want to pay attention to is to, after breaking the high house, to actually keep the eyes to the middle of the field, look and find the second target, and bring it across like a single. Now let's watch the form in this shot when we shoot the double. Again, same foot position, facing the low house window. Hold point for high one, same as the single. 20 feet up, eyes just above the barrel. Pull. Now, a number of things I want you to pay attention to in that form shot. First and most importantly, as far as doubles is concerned, listen to the cadence and the timing of that pair. We want to get that consistent cadence and timing so that every time we shoot this pair, we shoot it the same way. And as we see in the doubles video, which I hope you'll be able to look at after this video, finding that second shot and first shot placement is of the utmost importance, and cadence does that for us. Also through that form shot, please again notice the turn over the left foot, the shoulders level, and the head and the gun after the shot with a very clean and smooth follow through. Now, let's see that from over the shoulder. Pull. Now let's see what that looks like over the gun with the eye cam. Pull. And a good pair. Now let's have a better analysis of that in slow motion with the eye cam. Notice the gun come to the hold point. The target's called for, high one comes to the barrel, very little gun movement, that shot's taken. We acquire the second target over the middle of the field, put sustained lead on it, and finish that shot just like we would a single. Now that we've shot station 1, let's move on to station 2. Well, here we are at station 2. Now, our setup for station 2 is no different than station 1 or really any of the other stations. Obviously, the first thing that I do when I address the station is foot position. And the first thing I do is I walk up, look at my feet, and then make sure that I'm facing the lost window. And let's take notice right here, and I get this question a lot. People ask me, where should I stand on the station? It really doesn't matter where you stand on the station, whether it's this corner or back in here. What's important, in fact, I don't care where you stand on the station. What's important is that you're always facing in relationship to the field correctly, which means facing the lost window for the right-hand shooter and obviously the left-hand shooter facing the high house window. However, there are two shots on the field to where you stand on the station, there's a perceivable difference, and it's high 2 and low 6 because we're so close to the house that we're shooting. Now, in high 2, I prefer to stand and favor this corner of the station. The reason I stand on this corner, which is furthest away from the house, closer to the center of the field, is if given the option of shooting high 2 from here or over here, I'd pick here. It's further away from the house, so it's a little better angle, a little slower shot. Now, does it make that big of a difference? No, but I'm just playing the numbers. So that's why I stand on this particular corner. Now, more importantly, facing the lost window, let's talk about the hold point. Now, the hold point on high 2, like our hold point discussion earlier, is a third of the way out from the high house to the center stake. However, when you find yourself here at station 2 and you view that distance from the house to the center stake, our angle becomes a little skewed. It's more difficult to find that third of the way. So I have another way of finding that third of the way, and here's what it is. I address the station with a foot position, and measuring off this front corner, furthest away from this house, closest to the center, I go to straight out. Now, what's straight out? Well, it's perpendicular to the baseline, the line that runs from station 1 through station 8 to station 7, and it's parallel with the fence behind me. Straight out, perpendicular to the baseline. And I find that straight out, and then I add 3 feet. Now, if I walked out there and did that, you would find that I would end up exactly 21 feet out from the house. So that's a very precise and a very easy way to find my third of the way, and that's how I'm going to find that hold point on high 2. Now let's talk about another thing about the hold point. You remember at low 1, I mentioned level the bottom of the window. Of all the targets on a skeet field, more high 2s are missed for muzzles being too high than any other reason. For some reason, people want to take the gun and stick it up on the flight path. It obstructs the vision, you can't see high 2, it beats you, and you can never recover from it. So I do it everywhere, bottom of the window, but high 2, 3 feet past straight out, which is a third of the way, and level with the bottom of the window. I've got to get that big hunk of wood and metal down and out of my face so I can see what I'm shooting at. Now let's talk about eyes. On this particular target, my eyes are just off the edge of my gun. Again, if I look back into the window here, about the only thing I'd see would scare the hell out of me. I'd see a target coming 1,000 miles an hour, and I don't want to see that. Of all the shots in the field, there's 2 shots on the field that I never think about lead, and that's high 2 and low 6. These shots are so fast, and the lead is so minimal, I don't think about it on a conscious level, which means at station 3, I'm going to see 2.5 to 3 feet, and I'm pretty precise about that. However, at high 2, I just don't have time to see the actual lead, and if you want to get technical about it, it's maybe 6 inches. The whole key to this shot, get a good look at the target, make sure you see some daylight in front, and with good form, finish and fall through. In fact, let's see this shot in the form shot. Now the form shot. Foot position facing the lost window. Hold point, straight out, plus 3 feet, level with the bottom of the window, eyes just off the barrel, pull. And again, please notice, a good turn, weight forward, everything pivoted over the left foot, shoulders are level, and notice the follow through and the head staying in the gun after the shot. Now, let's look at that over the shoulder. Pull. Again, staying in the gun, finishing the shot. Now let's see what the actual lead looks like through the eye cam. Again, foot position, hold point, pull, and a good shot. Now let's look at that through slow motion through the eye cam. Notice the hold point, the gun's adjusted so it's at the bottom of the window, the target emerges, it's a quick aggressive shot, and once the lead is seen, the shot is taken. Now let's go to low 2 single. Now realize that low 2 single is the same shot as low 1 single. It's a long incomer with a short lead, so we're going to approach it the same way. I'm sure you already know what your foot position is. Belly button in the low house window, high house window for the left-handed shooters. Our hold point, because it's a long incomer with a short lead, only about 10 feet out from the house, and still I'm going to be level with the bottom of the window. And my eyes, I'm going to look just off the gun towards the window. Now I'd like to take this shot once it gets onto my half of the field. In fact, let's talk about shot placement real quick. As I go through the shots today, when I look at shot placement, I'm always dealing with only one half of the field, and here's what I mean by that. From stations 1 through 4, the only half of the field I care about is the half of the field from the high house to the center stake. Why? That's where all the action happens. And also, I'm going to be shooting low 2 double over on this side of the field, so I'm going to drag my low 2 single over in this part of the field where I'm going to shoot low 2 double so I have the same sight picture. My lead here is about 1.5 to 2 feet. Now, let's take a look at that with the form shot and see how it comes together. Foot position, hold point about 10 feet out, level with the bottom of the window. Weight comes forward, head down, tighten the gun, the eyes shift back, pull. And we see a good continuation of the turn, weight stays forward, head stays in the gun, shoulders level. Weight never varies from that left foot. All my weight's forward and I have this clean rotation. Now let's see that and how that works with the gun and the target in the over the shoulder shot. Pull. Notice the clean, easy gun movement, almost effortless. Now let's watch the gun and the target through the eye cam. Foot position, hold point, pull. And one more time in slow motion so we can get a really good look at that shot. Notice the gun comes back to the hold point. We're definitely at the bottom of the window. The target emerges. I immediately match gun speed with target speed, obtain my sustained lead, bring the shot over into this side of the field, take the shot, and follow through. Now that we've covered high 2 and low 2, let's shoot the pair. Now again, the shots haven't changed, so I'm not going to change my approach. High 2 single is the same shot as high 2 double, so we're going to approach it the same way. Same foot position, not going to change a thing. My hold point still, I find straight out, 3 feet past straight out, which gets me to my third. I'm level at the bottom of the window. Now one of the keys to doubles at 2, and when you view my doubles tape, we'll talk about in detail, is how to shoot correct doubles. And here to do it, we're going to just touch on it lightly. There's one key that governs all of doubles, and that's what I call the symmetry principle. And this is very simple math, and the symmetry principle says this. Both houses are equidistant to the center stake, 21 yards. And the targets generally, or they're supposed to at least, fly the same speed. So the symmetry principle says, and let me illustrate this for you. The symmetry principle says at no time are 2 targets ever on the same side of the field. They meet in the middle of the field. They're always on opposing sides of the field, and they're always equidistant from the center stake. Now here's why this applies to this particular pair, and actually every pair. I'm going to break high 2 about 15 or 20 feet before the stake. Now understand at that point in time, the symmetry principle tells me that low 2 is 20 feet the other side of the stake, which means this. I have a lot more time than I think. So here's what's going to happen on this pair. I'm going to break high 2. After I see high 2 break, immediately get the gun into the turn. And as I go into the turn, here's the all-important eye shift. My eyes have to come across from the high house side of the barrel to the low house side of the barrel so I can find low 2, and the gun knows how to come out and complete the turn, and I make a simple low 2 shot much like a single. And we'll be able to see this in the eye cam. But let's look at this pair through the form first. Foot position, facing the little house window. My hold point, straight out, +3. I'm going to break high 2 and then shift my eyes to the middle of the field and find that second target. Watch the turn on both shots. Pull. Now let's see what that looks like for the over-the-shoulder shot, and please pay attention how the shoulders stay level and the head stays in the gun before, during, and after both shots. Pull. Now let's see that through the eye cam. Again, foot position, facing the lost window, hold point, 3 feet past straight out. Shift the eyes to the second target after the first shot's taken. Pull. Now let's look at that in slow motion through the eye cam. Again, notice the position of the gun, level the bottom of the window in the high house. The high house emergent is taken rather aggressively. The eyes immediately shift to the middle of the field. We find the second target, bring it back like a single, take the shot, and finish it with good follow through. Now here we are at station 3. Now when I look at a skeet field, I divide it up into 2 groups of stations. We have the end stations, which are 1, 2, 6, and 7. These stations are closest to the baseline, the line running from stations 1 through station 7. And they give us the short lead targets, the fast outgoers like high 1, high 2, low 6, or the long incomers with short leads, low 1, low 2, high 6, and high 7. Because those shots are similar, we approach them the same way. Remember, low 1 and low 2 were basically the same shots, and that was our approach. My second group of stations are the 3 middle stations, stations 3, 4, and 5. These are the stations that are in the middle of the field, and they give us the true 90-degree angle crossing shots and the targets with the big leads, the 3 and 4 foot leads. Because these shots are similar, high and low 3, high and low 4, high and low 5, I approach them the same way, crossing targets with long leads. So let's talk about my approach to these shots. Once again, still right-handed, still facing the lost window, belly button in the lost window for my foot position. Left-handed shooters facing the high house window. My hold point, and now we can go back to our hold point discussion earlier. My hold point is 1/3 of the way from the house I'm shooting to the center stake. Again, the distance from the high house to the center stake, 21 yards. The hold point, 1/3 of the way out, 21 feet. And I'm going to survey that and find that spot and mark it, and I will go to that when I start my gun. Now my eyes here, I'm going to go about halfway back between the hold point and the house. That allows me to see the target leave the window, but I'm not locked onto that contrast of that black hole, and I find the target immediately, can react to it, get sustained lead, and make a nice easy shot. My shot placement, anywhere from 20 feet before the center stake to the center stake. What I'm looking for here is to control the target right at the start, get my sustained lead, and take the shot before it enters into the other side of the field. Now let's look at that through the form shot. Please pay attention how the weight stays forward. All the movement is generated by the legs, the shoulders stay level, and my head stays in the gun in a very controlled, easy move and good follow through after the shot. Foot position, hold point 1/3 of the way out, weight comes forward, pull. And a good shot staying in the gun, and notice when I finish that shot that I'm still in the gun until all movement is done. Now let's look at that over the shoulder. Again, paying attention to shoulders, head, follow through, and the finishing of the shot. Pull. Now let's see what that looks like over the barrel with the eye cam. Pull. And for a better look, let's see that in slow motion. Notice the gun comes to 1/3 of the way out, level the bottom of the window, the target emerges, the gun starts immediately, lead is obtained, and the shot is taken well before the center stake. Now let's go to low 3. Now I'm going to shoot low 3 in the same part of the field, in the middle of the field, as it enters into my half of the field right over the center stake. So since I'm going to shoot in the same spot and I was comfortable with the high house, I'm not going to change my foot position one bit for the low house. Hold point, I'm still at the 3 middle stations. So what's the whole point? It's 1/3 of the way from the house I'm shooting, now the low house to the center stake. So I find that distance about 20 feet out and mark it. Even here, I'm going to be level at the bottom of the window, especially being right-handed, because if I get the muzzle too high here, I'm having to look across the gun to see that target leave the window, and that's not good. So my muzzle's down, level at the bottom of the window, 1/3 of the way out. My eyes are going to be, again, about halfway back. Because this is an incomer, eye position's not that critical, not like, say, a high 2 or a high 3 or low 5 or low 6. But I'm going to get my eyes off the gun and look about halfway back. And my lead on this particular target is about 3.5 to 4 feet. This happens to be one of the longest leads on the field. Now I want you to watch this form shot carefully. Again, we're watching the legs drive the move, generate the shot, shoulders staying level, and watching the fall through after the shot's taken. Good foot position, facing the lost window, hole point, 1/3 of the way out. Weight comes forward, pull. And the shot is taken easily right over the middle of the field. Now let's look at that over the shoulder so we can get a relationship of the target and the field. Pull. And a nice finish to the shot. Now let's see that lead with the eye cam. Again, foot position, hole point 1/3 of the way out. Pull. Now let's look at that in slow motion through the eye cam. The hole point comes back to 1/3 of the way. Notice that immediately when the target starts coming out of the window, the gun starts moving. We get our lead immediately, control the gun, matching gun speed with target speed, and take an easy shot right at the middle of the field. You'll notice in the last couple of shots, I asked you to pay attention to how the gun moved in relationship with the target once it left the window. There's a very common mistake in this game, which we call leaving early. That's the act of the gun starting to move as the target's called for, but the target hasn't left the window yet. This gets us out in front, and we have to stop the gun. It also reduces vision and good hard focus on the target. So I want to demonstrate to you and illustrate what some of these mistakes look like so you know what to look for when you're on the field, and then you can also compare them to the good shots that we've just seen through the eye camera. Now, one of the reasons that leaving early is such an insidious problem is a lot of times you don't really know you're doing it. Also, when people try to correct it, if they do even know they're doing it, they usually change the wrong thing, make the wrong correction, and actually end up in more trouble. Now, we've shot a couple of shots for you making this mistake and some others with the eye cam so that you can see from behind the gun what's actually happening. In fact, let's look at the first one, which is the illustration of leaving early. Notice the gun comes back to the hole point, and immediately as the target's called for, the gun starts moving. Now, you haven't even seen the target yet. We've jumped out in front, and then the target catches up, and unfortunately for the target to catch up, I had to slow my gun down. In fact, I almost had to come to a dead stop. Plus, I didn't get a very good look at that target. So this is a problem that we really want to look for, and this is what's happening to you. If you're getting caught out in front, if you're not seeing targets well, you want to make sure that you're not leaving early. Now, when some people make this correction, they actually go to the other extreme. And here's what we've done with the eye cam to show you that. A number of people, to not leave early, actually leave late. In fact, if you'll notice in this shot, we come back to the hole point, the target's called for, but the gun doesn't move until the target blows past the barrel. All of a sudden, you're a swing-through shooter, and the gun has to be thrown to make the shot. So this isn't very good either. So one of the things we want to pay attention to as we're going through the rest of the field is when we get to the over-the-shoulder shots and the eye cam shots, I want you to notice, as we'll show you right now, a good high 3 shot. The hole point is attained, the target leaves the window, immediately gun speed is generated. By the time the target's 20 feet out of the house, we've generated a lead, we've matched gun speed with target speed, and can take an easy shot. So please, as we finish the rest of these stations, please pay attention to what the gun is doing with the eye cam in relationship to the target. Now, let's go to station 4 and keep doing what we've been doing at 3 at the middle stations. Well, here we are at station 4, the exact middle of the station, and we're starting to get into my half of the field. And I say my half of the field because what I'm doing right now has just become a lot easier. In fact, I can see that my producer and my cameraman are breathing a little easier too, because this is going to start going a lot faster, and it'll probably make you at home happier too. Now, why is it going faster? Not because I've gotten tired, but it's the same stuff. Mechanical and repetitive, not because it's easier to teach. This is the way the game works. So the fundamentals that we use at station 3, we're going to bring right over here to 4. In fact, if you look at it, we only moved over here about 22 feet. So the fundamentals in our approach stay the same. We're going to start with high 4. First thing, foot position. I know you know this before I'm going to say it. Belly button in the low house window. Our hole point, again, 3 middle stations, 1/3 of the way from the house we're shooting to the center stake. That's about 20 feet out from the high house, and again, level with the bottom of the window. My eyes are still going about halfway back here. The gun's up in the sky. I've got a great background here. Very easy for me to see that target come out of the window, so I don't need to look back in to find it any better. I'm going to see it quite well. My shot is going to get taken like the high 3, I'd like to shoot it about 20 feet before the stake, because as we get into the doubles in our doubles video, we'll notice that that's where we have to break that first shot for an easier second shot. But for now, shooting singles, 20 feet before the stake or to the stake, anywhere in that area is just fine. Now let's look at that through the form shot, and the lead is going to be 3 or 4 feet. Let's look at that through the form shot, and again, pay attention to the speed in which the body moves, which is not much. Notice that the weight stays forward, shoulders level, and staying in the gun in a good follow through after the shot with the legs driving the whole move. Here's the form shot. Foot position facing the lost window. Hole point a third of the way out. Pull! And a good follow through and finish. Now let's see that over the shoulder so we can see how the gun reacts to the target leaving the window. Pull. Now let's see what that looks like with the eye cam. Foot position, hold point a third of the way, level the bottom of the window. Pull. And now let's look at that in slow motion with the eye cam. Again, the gun comes back into the window a third of the way out. The target leaves the window. The gun starts moving immediately. Lead is obtained, and a nice, smooth, easy move. The shot is taken well before the center stake, and a very good shot at that. Now, let's move on to low 4. Now, low 4 is the same shot as high 4, just the opposite side of the field. So, again, foot position, because we're shooting the shot over the middle of the field, just like high 4, is going to remain the same. My hole point, I'm still at the 3 middle stations, so I'm going to hold a third of the way out. I'm even staying at the bottom of the window here so I can get a good look at that target leaving the window. Now, something changes when I do get to this side of the field. Generally, given good backgrounds, the high house is always going to be above the horizon, which means the target's going to come out in the sky. There's not a whole lot to take away from our vision. So I can look halfway back there. Some people prefer to look in closer. It's kind of whatever you like, however you see the target the best. Now, this gun club here, Greater Houston Gun Club, is one of the finest facilities in the nation. It also has one of the best backgrounds in the nation. However, when I look at this background here, the low house window is below the horizon. There's going to be clutter and confusion behind that window, which means I'm not going to see low 4 nearly as well as I see high 4. So because of that, I don't just look halfway back here from my hole point to the house. I take my eyes in a little bit closer so I can dig that target out of the background. However, remember from our discussion earlier, I don't like looking in that window. I don't like that contrast. So I'm going to look about 4 or 5 feet out here. Let's take a look at the form shot first. Foot position. Hole point a third of the way out, gun still down. Weight comes forward in the mount. Eyes back in a little closer. Pull. And a nice smooth move. Let's see that over the shoulder. Again, watching how the gun starts immediately when the target appears. Pull. And a beautiful shot. Now let's see what that looks like through the eye cam. Pull. And now let's look at that in slow motion. Notice the hole point still staying at the bottom of the window. My eyes are coming back a little bit more here. Now you can see the background that I'm talking about. The target comes out, the gun starts immediately. A lead is obtained, the same lead that you've seen from stations 3, 4, 5, that 3.5 to 4 feet, and the shot is easily taken over the middle of the field. Well, here we are at station 5. Now, there's a number of movies that I've seen so many times I can talk along with the actors, and I hope you're starting to become that way with this presentation, meaning this. We're trying to present this information in a form that is repetitive for you. So for the consistent approach, we're doing it over and over and over and over again. I hope that I am becoming redundant. So you probably know what I'm about to talk about here, and let's talk about high 5, our first shot here at this station. Obviously, you know what your foot position is for the right-hand shooter facing the lost window, left-hand shooter facing the high house window. We're still at the 3 middle stations, so my hole point for high 5, 1/3 of the way from the high house to the center stake. Again, about 20 feet out from the house. Hole point, level the bottom of the window. Now still, like from our discussion at station 4, the high house, that target is going to be presented well up in the sky, so I only need to look about halfway back from my hole point to see this target. Now we're going to shoot the form shot first, and what I want you to pay attention to is the weight forward, the good clean turn, shoulder staying level, and how the gun stays in the gun before, during, and after the shot. Let's take a look at it through the form shot. Foot position facing lost window. Hole point 1/3 of the way out. Eyes halfway back. Pull! And a good shot over the middle of the field. Now let's see that again with the over the shoulder shot. Pull. A good clean turn. Now let's look at that with the eye cam. We'll see the exact lead, that 3.5 to 4 feet of lead that we've been seeing throughout all these middle stations, 3, 4, and 5. Foot position, hole point, pull. Now let's look at that through slow motion. Notice the gun come to the hole point, level the bottom of the window, the target emerges, the gun moves immediately, not quickly, but immediately, matching gun speed with target speed, sustained lead is obtained, and the shot is taken over the middle of the field. Now let's go to our low 5 shot. Again, foot position is not going to change. Both shots are going to be taken, although close to the center of the field, still on my side of the field. So foot position facing lost window for me, being right-handed. Now let's talk about our hole point here. Obviously we're still at the 3 middle stations on low 5, so my hole point's going to be 1/3 of the way out. However, there is a change here. Once I've gotten to this side of the field, and you know that I've been preaching stay at the bottom of the window on all your shots so we have good vision on the target. If I held the bottom of the window here on low 5, because of the angle that this target comes out at, I wouldn't gain any vision, I'd just be creating some more gun movement. So I have an exception to my level of the bottom of the window rule, and that's on low 5 and low 6, although it doesn't seem like much, I cheat up to the top of the window. It doesn't take away any vision, and I have a little bit of an easier move up to the target. I don't have to work as hard to get to it. So, I'm 1/3 of the way out. Now coming to the top of the window, and remember what we did with our eyes at low 4. We've got some background here, so my eyes are going to cheat in a little bit closer to that window to dig that target out of that background and that confusion. Now let's see what all this looks like with the form shot. Again, looking for the weight forward, looking for how the legs drive the shot, and the shoulders stay level, and the head stays in the gun after the shot. Here's the form shot on low 5. Foot position, facing the lost window, hole point, 1/3 of the way out. Eyes cut back in a little closer here. Pull. And the left quadricep drives the move. Now let's look at that when the over the shoulder shot. Pull. Now let's see what that lead looks like through the eye cam. Pull. And now let's look at that in slow motion through the eye cam. Notice how the gun's being held a little bit higher here at the top of the window, still down in the background, and there's a lot of background behind that window, so I am looking in closer. The target emerges, the gun moves immediately, controls the target, the lead is seen 2.5 to 3 feet, and the shot's taken. All right, here we are at station 6. Now we've gotten off the middle stations and come back to the first group of stations, the end stations 1, 2, 6, and 7. And everything I tell you here at 6 is going to be just with the same thing that we did over at station 2, because they're the same shots, opposing side of the field. As a right-handed shooter, and we're going to shoot high 6 first, as a right-handed shooter, belly button the lost window, left-handed shooter, going to face the high house window, being comfortable in the middle of the field. Now my whole point here, remember, I've gotten off these long lead targets that I've got to get the leads quickly out in the middle, these long crossing shots. Now I'm back to a long incomer with a short lead. So remember what we did at low 1 and low 2, I'm going to do that here at high 6. The whole point, only about 10 feet out, because I don't need much of a head start here. So I'm level at the bottom of the window, out about 10 feet, the eyes come in a little bit closer to the house. Let's see what that looks like with the form shot. Again, you're in a good position now, because now you're able to see how my body works and turns from behind. I want you to watch how the shoulders stay level, all the weight stays forward, and I have a clean rotation through the shot and stay in the gun. Let's look at the high 6 form shot. Foot position, facing the low house window. Hole point, 10 feet out, weight comes forward in the mount. Pull. Now let's look at that from over the shoulder and get a much better look at what the gun is doing in relationship to the target. Pull. Now let's look at that with the eye cam and see what that actual lead looks like. That 1.5 to 2 feet of lead. Pull. Now let's look at that high 6 shot in slow motion through the iCam. Again, pay attention to the fact that the gun is coming in much closer, the only 10 feet out from the house. The target emerges, gun speed is matched with target speed, the target is controlled, brought into my side of the field, and the shot is taken with 1.5 to 2 feet of lead. Now we're going to shoot low 6, and low 6 is just the opposite side of the field from high 2. So the approach that we use so successfully on high 2, we're going to use over here on low 6. Again, the foot position doesn't change. I'm still right-handed, so I'm facing the low house window. Now remember the hole point that we use on high 2. Because it's easier to find this exact precise hole point of 1/3 of the way, I'm going to find straight out, again, perpendicular to the baseline, parallel with the fence. I'm going to find that straight out, and I'm going to add 3 feet. That's going to bring me that 1/3 of the way. Now remember what we did also in low 5. Because of the angle that this target comes out and the elevation that it reaches so quickly, if I held at the bottom of the window here, I'd just be making a more difficult shot. I'd be creating more gun movement. So I'm going to cheat up again like I do on low 5. These are the only 2 shots that I do it on. I'm going to come up to the top of the window, 3 feet past straight out, and much like low 4 and low 5, because of the background, my eyes are going to look in a little closer. And when we're looking at lead here, well, remember, high 2 and low 6, the only 2 shots in the field that I don't worry about lead because I really don't have time. The actual lead, maybe 6 to 8 inches. I'm looking for some daylight out in front. The biggest thing I'm looking for here, getting a good look at the target and coming out with the target, which means matching gun speed with target speed. Now let's look at the low 6 as a form shot. Foot position, hole point 3 feet past straight out. Notice the weight come forward and the pivot on the foot as I turn with the target. Pull. And a good finish to that shot. Now let's look at that over the shoulder. Pull. Now let's look at that through the iCam and see how the gun moves in relationship with the target. Pull. Now let's look at that through the iCam in slow motion. Notice the hole point out, which is 1/3 of the way, 3 feet past straight out. The target comes out, the gun moves immediately, a very aggressive move to the target. Some daylight is seen, the shot is taken. Now, let's go to our doubles. Now again, there's really no such thing as doubles. There's only 2 singles really close together. So everything we did in our singles, we're going to apply to our doubles. The one thing we want to remember is what we talked about in our doubles at 2, the symmetry principle. The whole key to doubles is after a good first shot, when you take the eyes, come across the barrel, look towards the middle of the field to find high 6, our second target, and able to bring it back like a single. Now let's look at that through the form shot. Again, please notice how in both directions the body moves in the same way, the legs drive the move, the shoulders stay level on both shots, and I'm in the gun at the end of the second shot. Here's the form shot for station 6, doubles. Foot position facing low house window, hole point 3 feet past straight out. Top of the window, eyes come back. Pull. And a good shot with the weight finished on the left foot. Now let's look at that over the shoulder. Now pay attention to how after the low 6 is broken, high 6 is picked up in the middle of the field and brought back like a single. Pull. Now let's see that through the iCam and see how the gun moves in relationship with the barrel and see what the actual leads are. Pull. And now let's see that in slow motion. A good hole point, gun 3 feet past straight out, low 6 emerges, again an aggressive move to the low 6. Immediately after that first shot's broken, the gun starts into the turn, looking up to the middle of the field for the second target. We acquire it, match gun speed with target speed, and take the second shot with little effort. Well, here we are at Station 7, probably the most basic of the skeet stations. In fact, everyone watching this probably already knows how to shoot this shot and doesn't have much problems with it. However, people do miss targets here, and they generally miss targets because they're taken for granted. And I want to tell you a quick story. Not really a story, it's an integral part of my game. At the start of each year, for the last 30 years that I've shot this sport, I've had one goal, at the start of every tournament season. And that one goal is to never, throughout the tournaments and registered targets that I shoot, never miss at stations 1, 7, or 8. Now that seems pretty basic, and you go, well, big deal. Here's why that's a big deal. In the 30 years that I've shot registered targets, I've gone through the season 4 times. 4 years, I've made it through competition without missing it 1, 7, or 8. Now here's the interesting part about that. Those 4 seasons where I did miss on these baseline targets are my 4 highest averages ever. They're the years that I didn't give away the easy shots. The other years, they may have been good, but I had missed a high 1 or a low 7. I'd give away shots I shouldn't give away. So for 2 reasons, I don't want to give away the easy ones, but also the reason they're given away is because they're taken for granted. So when you come up to this station, this is where I practice my form. I want to have excellent, good form at 7, because if I can't execute perfect form at 7, how can I expect to have it at 6, 5, or even a doubles at 4? So pay attention to everything we've talked about. Let's have good execution on these shots. Now here we are at station 7. Now for the first time as a right-handed shooter, I can't really face the little house window here. I wouldn't be able to see the targets. So there's an exception to my foot position rule. Obviously the left-handed shooter is still going to face the high house, but for the right-handed shooter, I will address the station in this manner, facing straight out. If we drew a line from the back of my heels from heel to heel, it would be parallel with the side of the station here. Standing in this manner, if I take the gun and comfortably drop it across my body, it's pointing right to the center stake, right where I'm going to take my low 7 shot, and I have a very comfortable turn on my high 7, both single and double. So we know what the foot position is. Remember, high 7, long incomer, short lead. Remember what we did at low 2, low 1, and even high 6. Short lead, long incomer, my hold point about 10 feet out, level the bottom of the window. My eyes will cut back just a little bit to see the target. Now let's pay attention to our form and let's see if I can execute a perfect shot through the form shot on high 7. Foot position, facing straight out, hold point. 10 feet out from the house, level the bottom of the window. Eyes shift back just a little bit, weight comes forward, pull. And a good finish to that shot. Now let's see what that looks like over the shoulder. Pull. Shoulders stay level, head stays in the gun. Now let's look at that through the eye cam. Obviously not looking for much lead here, only about half a foot to a foot. And watch how the gun moves with the target, and we finish the shot with a good follow through. Pull. Now let's look at that high 7 shot in slow motion through the eye cam. Hold point comes back, notice the proximity to the house, only about 10 feet out, very close. Target emerges, we immediately match gun speed with target speed. That's the legs generating the smooth movement. The target gets to this side of the field, I see my lead, 6 inches to a foot, and the shot is taken. Now let's go to low 7. Same foot position because I'm taking the target in the middle of the field. Now the one thing I do with my hold point at low 7 is I generally try to watch where this target's going. Hopefully it's going over the center stake to the distance marker. But I pay more attention to the elevation or the height of this target. A lot of low 7s are missed because people take the gun and they stick it right where they expect the target to be. The gun's in the way, they never get a good look at it. So I'm going to purposely hold 1 to 2 feet below where that target's crossing at the middle of the field. So if you're familiar with the hoop, if that target is crossing through the middle of the hoop at 15 feet, I might hold at the bottom of the hoop, maybe 13 feet above the ground. This does 2 things. First of all, gets my barrel out of the way, gives me better vision on low 7. It also prepares me for the errant target, the low 7 that may come a little flat underneath my barrel. Now my gun's down and I can see it, I can still make a good shot on it. Now let's look at that low 7 through the form shot. Foot position, the same as high 7. Hold point's going to be right over that stake. Eyes off the gun, just above, looking for low 7. Pull. Not a whole lot of movement there. The target appears. I get a really good look at it, focus on it, watching it spin, and take the shot. Now let's see that over the shoulder. Pull. Now let's see what that looks like through the eye cam. Pull. Wow, that looks pretty good through the eye cam. Let's take a look again at that through slow motion because it was such a good shot, and see how this shot falls together for us. The gun sets up over the middle of the field. Notice it's low, so I can get a good look at low 7. The target comes out, make a small corrected move to it, and make a great shot. Now, let's see the pair. Obviously not changing a thing for my singles. Singles, same thing as doubles. They just happen really close together. Always shooting our target going away from us first, so low 7 is our first shot. Foot position stays the same. Let's look at the form shot. Again, I want you to pay attention, actually more importantly, to what I do after I shoot low 7. Watch how the legs start driving to bring high 7 across the field, and how I maintain a clean rotation. Again, shoulders level, head in the gun, even after the shot. Doubles at 7, the form shot. Pull. Now let's see what that looks like over the shoulder. Pull. And how about let's see what that looks like over the gun through the eye cam. Pull. And one more time in slow motion. Again, notice where the gun is started. Low, so in case I catch a flat one, low 7 emerges, that shot's taken rather quickly, the gun stays in the middle of the field, I find the second target, come out of the turn, match gun speed with target speed, and shoot high 7 double, much the same as I would high 7 single on my side of the field, with about 6 inches to a foot of lead. Well, here you are at Station 8, the center station. Now, in my estimation, Station 8 really does not belong on a skeet field. The reason being, most of the fundamentals and body mechanics things that we've talked about up to this point kind of go out the window here. This is more of a trick shot and doesn't have a whole lot to do with shotgun fundamentals, which means this. I'm going to tell you how I approach this shot. However, because it is kind of a different shot, you can do a number of things out here. So I'm going to start with the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're not having problems with this target, I don't think I'd screw with it too much, because again, it's more of a trick shot. However, if you are having problems, or if you'd like to maybe find an easier way, let me tell you what I do, and if it works for you, then that's great. Again, my foot position here, this is a part of the exception, because I can't really face the low house window being right-handed, so I'm going to stand the same way that I did shooting Station 7. For the left-hand shooter, he's going to face that high house window. Now let's talk about the whole point. This really gets to my approach to this target. The way I approach high and low 8 is what I call making a triangle. And if you can visualize, my whole point is going to be level the bottom of the window, guns down and out of the way so I can see, and out about 4 feet from the window. Now this window here is about 2.5 feet inside the edge of the house, so we'll be out another 1.5 feet. There's the bottom leg of the triangle, that whole point moving out from the window. Now the target flight path is going to form the hypotenuse of the triangle, so my gun moving from the whole point, going and intercepting the flight path of the target, completes the triangle and completes the shot. Now what I'm trying to illustrate by this is I'm not moving directly to the target. It's not a right triangle where I move straight up. I'm not making this jab up to the target. I'm making a nice easy move to the target, but once I get on it, I don't get on it and start tracking with it. A lot of people have problems with the shot because they're trying to shoot it like a skeet shot, like it's a low 4 or even a high 3. They're trying to get on it and match gun speed with target speed. We don't have that much time here, so we're not going to deal with that. We're truly going to this target, covering it up, which is the sight picture. It's maybe 3 inches of lead if you want to get technical, but I truly take my gun, go cover the target up, and let the shotgun do the work. Now, let's see what that looks like with the form shot. Foot position facing straight out. Same foot position I had at Station 7. My whole point is level with the bottom of the window, 4 feet out. The eyes are going right in the hole here. I need to see this target leave this trap. And then watch how most of the movement is created with the left hand. You're not going to see much leg turn here. Little leg turn, no big shoulder roll. The left hand is going to control the gun, completing the triangle. Pull. And staying in the gun at the end of the shot. In fact, more high and low 8s are missed from coming out of the gun than any other reason. Now, let's see that staying in the gun through the over-the-shoulder shot. Now we can get a good look at the triangle. Pull. And a very positive move to the target. Now, let's see what that looks like through the eye cam. Foot position, facing out. Whole point, 4 feet out from the window. Bottom of the window. Pull. Now let's see what that looks like in slow motion through the eye cam. Notice the gun coming back to the hold point, 4 feet out from the window. The target emerges, a very aggressive, positive move to the target, and once the gun covers the target up, the shot is taken. Now let's turn around and shoot low 8, which is the exact same shot, just comes from a different direction. Now here, being right-handed, I'm going to go back to facing low house window. In fact, if you think about it, this is the way I stood when I was at station 1, and low 8 is really a low 1 that we're 60 feet closer to. The same basic move. So I'm going to stand facing the low house window. Same shot as high 8, level the bottom of the window, out 4 feet, the gun's down and out of the way so I can see. The target will emerge. I'll make a very positive move using the left hand to generate the movement, cover the target up and take the shot. Now let's look at that through the form shot and notice that there's not a lot of body movement in the shot, that the left hand is pretty much controlling the muzzle to complete the shot. Foot position, facing the low house window. Hold point, level the bottom of the window, 4 feet out. Pull. And in the gun after the shot. Now, let's see what that looks like over the shoulder to get a good view of the gun-target relationship. Pull. Now let's see what that looks like through the eye cam. Pull. And one more time in slow motion. Notice the gun level the bottom of the window, 4 feet out. Notice the gun is 4 feet out from the window, not from the house, because we're coming from where the target's emerging from. The target leaves the window. Again, an aggressive, positive move to the target with the left hand, and the target is taken. Now, before we leave low 8, I never leave low 8 without seeing it break twice. So let's see that again in slow motion with the eye cam. Let's shoot our option. Bottom of the window, eyes back in the window, target emerges, nice, smooth, positive move, and low 8's taken. Now we've completed the field, and I hope you found that all the information that I give you is going to help your game become much better and much more consistent. And I am positive and very confident that if you do follow the instructions that I've laid out for you, follow these methods, become consistent, you will always be shooting 2 low 8s here on this station. First of all, I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for taking the time to look at this video and hopefully improve your game tremendously. I'd like to thank Sunrise Productions for giving me the opportunity to bring my knowledge to you. I'd also like to thank Briley and Krieghoff, who made this tape possible. And I'd like to thank Greater Houston Gun Club, who worked with us night and day to bring these videos to you. There's something I'm very excited about that I want to let you know about. We've already shot our doubles video, and we did it here at Greater Houston Gun Club. We did it at night, under the lights, with flash targets. And the demonstration of what was going on and the visual aspects of this video are some of the most exciting things I've ever seen in the shotgun production in videos. So please, I want you to work on your singles. I want you to work on your form. But don't wait until you're breaking hundreds to start working on your doubles. Once you've gotten the fundamentals that we've worked on here in this video, I want you to buy and look at this doubles video and start working on your doubles game. You know, when my singles game isn't very good, a lot of times I'll shoot some doubles practice, because doubles takes everything up a couple of notches. It kind of goes up at an exponential level. So when I shoot a lot of doubles practice, because everything's just so much more important, I always come back and shoot my singles better. So please work with the fundamentals, work with what we presented you with in the singles. Please go out and look at this doubles video that both myself and Sunrise Productions are very excited about, and we wish you the best of luck in your career in the shooting disciplines.
Well, I'm confident that you found this presentation extremely interesting. You may have also found it a little overwhelming, and that is the point. We've given you a lot of information. What I would suggest is that you go out and practice after watching this, then come back and watch it again. New things will come to you that you say, wow, I need to try that, or I need to practice that, or that was a mistake I was making. This presentation should probably be watched 8-10 times before you absorb all of the information that's in it. And we're getting ready to give you a little more. I'd like to ask Todd a few questions and try to anticipate the questions that you would ask at home. First, Todd, when I've watched you shoot in competition, I see you step on the station, close your gun, and before you mount it, you probably take 4 or 5 seconds of just gazing out in the blue or in the night. What are you thinking at that point?
I'm preparing for my shot. I use a lot of mental rehearsal in my game, which means I want to know what's going to happen. I don't like surprises. So I think through the shot, I see where I'm going to break it. We talked a lot about it today in the presentation. Thinking about where the shot's going to be taken, what the lead's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, so that when I call for that target, I'm absolutely ready and I'm knowing what's going to happen.
Well, I know what you mean, because when I first started shooting skeet, I would be up there and I'd call pull, and then be surprised when a target came out. So be prepared, right?
Always.
All right, next, chokes. What chokes do you use, and do you pattern different ammunition when you change ammunition?
Well, first of all, I rarely change ammunition. I've stuck with Remington for years. What has changed, though, is, of course, I recently went to a 32-inch barrel. So when I went to a new barrel, that obviously meant a new set of tubes, which means I needed to do some patterning to see how those chokes, those tubes performed with my Remington ammo. So I did a lot of extensive patterning to make sure that I was getting what I wanted out of those chokes. I tend to shoot a little tighter choke, which means I shoot about a 7 or 8 thousandths choke, tighter than most people. However, you also have to understand that those numbers are strictly a guideline. You could have 3 7 thousandths chokes, and all three would pattern differently, because it's an unscientific science. We're sitting here in the kingdom of chokes here at Briley, and Briley will be the first to tell you that although they do know a lot about chokes, they don't quite understand exactly what's happening. Each choke will react and perform a little differently. So you need to put your time in, and you also need to understand what you're looking for. I'm looking for confidence. I want good hits, so I tend to shoot tighter patterns, whereas a beginning shooter probably would want more hits and more breaks, which means bigger patterns.
Well, that seems to be true in all the clay target sports. As your confidence improves and your ability improves, you seem to tighten up your chokes. I've seen that with almost all of the clay target sports. Now, talking about your 32-inch barrels, when did you make that change?
I changed last year.
And for what reason?
For the same reason that I went from 28s to 30s about 15 years ago, to smooth me out a little bit, better pointability, more control in the gun, and I got it. Very pleased with the first year, and I will be shooting 32-inch barrels for a long time now.
That's quite interesting, because when I first started skeeting, probably you, 26-inch barrels was it.
It was the standard.
But now you pick one up and it's extremely whippy, you know, or I do.
It seems like a sawed-off shotgun.
Oh yeah, and a light hunting gun. But a word of advice, quite a few of the sporting clay shooters went to 34-inch barrels, and quite a few of the skeet shooters have gone to 32s. But there's also a number of those shooters that have dropped back down to, say, 32s in sporting clays and 30 in skeet. So you may not have the stature or the stamina to handle these longer barrels, so check them out before you commit to them. Many of our viewers are like yourself. They travel to shoot competition. When you go to a different area that's a different background, what do you look for?
Probably the main thing I'm looking for is difference in target speeds. I'm looking for how the targets appear on different backgrounds. I might have to change where I look, which is one of the things we talked a lot about today in the video, is where to look for particular targets and finding those hold points, looking for changes, differences that maybe from one field to the next, not just from gun club to the next. Which is why when I travel, of course, if I have the ability to do it, it's what I do. But I do show up at tournaments at least a day before, where I have time to practice, where I have time to survey the fields, what I'm going to be looking at, so that again, I have no surprises.
And the day of the event, what do you do?
I like to show up early. I'm one of these guys who I don't like to be rushed. So I show up a good 45 minutes, hour before my squad time, again, to look at targets, make sure my equipment, my gear is in order and ready, so that when it's time to take the field, there's not a lot of screwing around. We walk onto the field and we start taking care of business.
Let's back to that confidence thing. You have confidence in your equipment and your ability when you walk out there.
And confidence in my preparation.
Right.
And so that I'm 100% focused when it's time to do what I'm supposed to do.
Well, Todd, this question may not be as pertinent to the experienced shooters out there, but I'm confident that we have some that are just getting into the game or been in it a short period of time. And I remember back when I started shooting skeet, I must have shot, I bet, 10 99s before I ever broke 100. I call it the 99 rut. Any advice for the 99 shooter?
Yeah, of course, I call that my comfort zone. I think everyone has a thermostat, kind of like the thermostat in your house. My thermostat in my house generally is set, we'll say it's 70. When the temperature gets a little warm and it gets up to 75, the air conditioner comes on, brings it back down to 70. That's how a thermostat operates. Well, if we have these thermostats for our shooting set, mine fortunately is set at about 100. So when I'm 75 straight and I'm in the last round, I'm operating within my comfort zone. Nothing's going to happen. Now, if you're operating outside of your comfort zone, like say 75 straight for the first time, and you're in that last 25, well, you're out of your comfort zone and you'll start to get nervous and you'll do something like miss 4 or 5 targets and then become comfortable and then you break a 95, but you're not very happy with that. So what we have to do is change that inside thermostat. Now that's a lot easier said than done, and a lot of it comes with experience. Obviously my thermostat's set at 100 because I've done it a lot, and I think that I can do that. So a lot of it's mental, some of it's putting the time and experience in.
Well, another question that may not be pertinent to the AAA shooter, but for the shooters of a little less experience. Let's say I'm a B-class shooter. How should I be practicing to increase my ability?
Well, first of all, we need to focus on the fundamentals that we've talked about today. Also, the way I practice, there's a saying that I love, and it's that you don't practice for a 26-mile marathon by doing 100-yard dashes. If you're trying to break 100 straights, that's what I practice to do, which means when I go to practice, I shoot 4 boxes of shells. It gets me into that same mode of thinking that, hey, I'm 75 straight, let's get this last round. And I prepare for that event. So shoot regular rounds like you're going to do in competition. Practice on form. Don't think about scores much. Practice on good execution. If you look at the top shooters in the nation, they're all doing a lot of things right, and they're able to do it over and over and over again correctly. They have good form and fundamentals. So stop paying attention to your scores, pay attention to your execution, and practice what you're going to do in competition.
Okay, back to this lesser experienced shooter, we'll say. Should that person be practicing with a tighter choke and then opening up when they go to competition? Do you recommend that?
No, I don't do it, nor do I recommend it. The reason why, it's kind of a funny story. Cliff Moeller, president of Briley here, took the advice of someone who said you should practice with tighter chokes. It'll increase your confidence. And then you'll go to competition and shoot a more open choke and think you'll hit everything. Unfortunately, the guy who told him to do that is one of the best shooters in the nation, and he has the ability to shoot a tight choke and help his confidence. Cliff doesn't operate in that very limited area, so what he did was destroy his confidence because he started breaking 20s and 19s with that tight choke. I also don't think that you should be changing around. I want to practice with the equipment that I'm going to shoot in competition. When I practice, my practice is like competition, and then when I get in competition, I shoot just like I'm in practice. So I don't like changing things. I don't like playing tricks on myself. I want to gain confidence with the equipment that I'm going to use, and I think you should use what you're confident with, what you're going to shoot well, and not make any changes from that.
To follow up on that, I have a little analogy that you might find interesting. I don't feel that you can really practice for a competition. Entering a competition this week is practice for the competition you will enter next week, because you cannot duplicate the pressure that you're under when you're in a competition. Well, that brings up another point. Many of us macho men out there shooting want to introduce our wife or our teenager into the game of skeet, and the first thing we do is take them out and hand them a big 12 gauge and say, here, you know, go shooting. And it's a big mistake. What would you recommend there?
Yeah, every time I see that, I think, well, they must not ever want them to shoot again.
Right.
And you see this little woman getting beat up by this huge gun. So a nice 20 gauge automatic and 1100 is probably the perfect beginner gun because there's not a lot of recoil. What's also important is that you don't want to go too small either.
Don't want to go to 410.
I've seen a lot of kids trying to shoot a 410, and you know, I don't shoot the 410 well sometimes. So that's not a good way to build confidence either. So a 28, 20 gauge, the perfect gun to start someone out with. Don't let them get beat up. Don't have a gun that's too big, not only in recoil, but in length and weight. Get something that's sized for the shooter and something that they can easily enjoy the sport with.
The beautiful thing about the sport of skeet is that regardless of your sex, age, or physical ability, it's a sport that you can enjoy the rest of your life. And we'd like to thank Todd for allowing us to tap into his years of experience and his great teaching ability.
Well, thanks, Bruce, for giving me an opportunity of sharing my knowledge with our viewers. And I promise you that if you use these methods and fundamentals set forth in this presentation, that you will become a better shooter.
Well, the only thing better than watching this presentation is having Todd at your side. I highly recommend that you schedule a personal lesson with Todd. You may schedule that lesson by giving Todd a call at 678-296-5184 or on the web at bendershima@aol.com.
Well, here's an extra added bonus to this video. Preparation and mental visualization is a very big part of my game, and I've been doing it for a long time. So now we're going to run through, in a very condensed period of time, one round of skeet. We'll walk through it, I'll talk through it, and you can visualize and prepare for your 25 straights. All right, let's start. Station 1, high house. Hold point, eyes, correct sight picture. Low 1, hold point, eye shift, 6 inches to a foot of lead. Now the pair. Hold point, eyes, cadence, bang, bang. Let's go to station 2. Station 2, high house, hold point, peripheral vision, shoot his nose. Low 2, hold point, eye shift, 1.5 feet, 2 feet of lead. Let's shoot the pair, thinking about the cadence. Hold point, peripheral vision, bang, bang. Station 3, hold point, eye shift, 3 feet of lead. Low 3, hold point, eye shift, 3.5 feet, 4 feet of lead. Station 4, hold point, eye shift, 3.5 feet, 4 feet of lead. Low house, hold point, eye shift, 3.5 feet, 4 feet of lead. Station 5, hold point, eye shift, 3.5 feet, 4 feet of lead. Low 5, hold point, eye shift, 2.5 to 3 feet of lead. Station 6, high house, hold point, eye shift, 1.5 feet, 2 feet of lead. Low 6, hold point, eye shift, shoot his nose. Doubles, hold point, eye shift, cadence, bang, bang. Station 7, hold point, eye shift, 6 inches to a foot of lead. Low 7, hold point, eye focus, bang, right at it. Doubles, hold point, eye focus, cadence, bang, bang. Station 8, high 8, hold point, eyes in the window, bang. Low 8, hold point, eyes in the window, bang. Always shoot the option, hold point, eyes in the window, bang.
Aside from being the world's largest supplier of shotgun chokes, Briley also offers complete gunsmithing for rifles, pistols, and shotguns. Briley can bend your shotgun stock for a better fit, glass bed and accurize your favorite rifle, tune up your target pistol, or completely restore almost any firearm. They also offer a complete line of shooting accessories, so give Briley a call for all of your shooting needs. K80 by Krieghoff is the product of modern German engineering, more than a century of gun-making experience, and a distinguished American heritage. The K80 is quite simply the most reliable and versatile competition shotgun in the world today. Alan Lehman of Lehman Optical has been supplying skeet, trap, and sporting clay shooters with the very best shooting glasses available for many years. They can provide you with lenses in all the popular tints, in prescription and non-prescription. Lehman Optical offers a variety of frame designs, including the popular Ranger frame from Randolph Engineering. So give Lehman Optical a call for all of your eyewear needs. For other sporting clays, skeet, and wing shooting videos and shooting accessories, visit us on the web at www.sunrisevideo.com.